Our report is all about gas transport. And I am here to discuss how oxygen enters the tissue and how carbon dioxide is transported to the blood. First, let me discuss about this diagram. This here is the tissue. Here we have the plasma. And in between the plasma and the tissue is a space called interstitial fluid. And here is the red blood cells. Now let's discuss how oxygen enters the tissue. Some of the oxygen can be dissolved in the plasma and can enter to the interstitial fluid and then can enter the tissue and be utilized as energy. Majority of the oxygen are transported into the red blood cells, and it is bound to a molecule called hemoglobin, wherein it will dissociate and form hemoglobin and oxygen. Now the oxygen here can be transported to the interstitial fluid and then transported into the tissue to be utilized as energy. Now let's talk about how carbon dioxide is transported to the plasma or the blood. Carbon dioxide is a byproduct of using oxygen, and it has three mechanisms of transport. First, from the tissue, some of the carbon dioxide is transported to the plasma and is dissolved. Next, some carbon dioxide is transported to the red blood cells and reacts with hemoglobin, which then will form a reaction called carboamino hemoglobin. Next, most of the carbon dioxide is transported through the bicarbonate ions, wherein carbon dioxide reacts with water in the red blood cells, wherein in a fast process will create carbonic acid with the help of a membrane-bound enzyme called carbonic anhydrase that helps in speeding up the process of converting. Next, after the conversion of carbonic acid, it will form the bicarbonate and hydrogen ion. This bicarbonate will be pushed out of the red blood cells and in reaction to that, chlorine ion from the plasma will go inside of the red blood cell, and this process is called the chloride shift. Wherein It counterbalances the outrush of the chloride and the entrance of chlorine ion. The hydrogen that supplies the bicarbonate will react with the hemoglobin and will form hydrogen-bound hemoglobin. Next process, the second process of bicarbonate is through the plasma, wherein carbon dioxide will enter the plasma and react with water, wherein in a slow process, opposite of the one inside the red blood cell, will convert into carbonic acid, which will then form bicarbonate and hydrogen ion. And that is how carbon dioxide is transported.
So I will discuss how gas transport in our lungs. So first, I'll discuss the illustration. So here, we have the alveolus, we have the interstitial fluid, the plasma, and the red blood cells. So here's the process. So some of the carbon dioxide can easily transport into the alveolus so that we can exhale. And majority of the carbon dioxide actually transported into the blood as bicarbonate. Then it will bind to the hydrogen, which will form carbonic acid. And by the slow process, it will form hydrogen and carbon dioxide. Then the carbon dioxide will now enter the alveolus. So some of the bicarbonate in the plasma will enter the red blood cells, in which it will bind with the hydrogen and it will form the carbonic acid, so in the red blood cells, there is what we call membrane-bound enzyme, which speeds up the process, which results into the water and carbon dioxide, in which the carbon dioxide once again will enter the alveolus. Since the bicarbonate entered the red blood cells, chloride ion will bring out to counterbalance the reaction, which is the process called reverse chloride shift. So next will be the carboamino hemoglobin, they will dissociate and will form carbon dioxide and hemoglobin, which the carbon dioxide will enter the alveolus. So we will now proceed to the oxygen. So some of the oxygen can be dissolved in the plasma, and majority of the oxygen will enter the red blood cells and will bind to the hydrogen-bound hemoglobin, in which it will form the oxyhemoglobin and The hydrogen will react to the hydrogen that supplies the bicarbonate, and that is how the gas transport.
Ends our report. Thank you.